to How to End a Party, the podcast where white AFAB mid-30s talk about anything other than true crime. I'm Chris.
And I am April.
Welcome!
Yay. I'm very excited.
How are you doing, April?
I am doing great.
Great.
Mm-hmm.
What do you got going on? Anything fun or exciting?
I got my first tattoo over the weekend.
What? I'm acting shocked and surprised like you didn't send me a picture of it.
It only took me 35 years.
Hey, there's no shame in that. My brother still doesn't have a tattoo, so.
Yeah, I think I'm the last person in my immediate family to get a tattoo.
I think I'm the first person in my immediate family.
Oh, really?
Potentially the only.
Yeah, my grandparents didn't have tattoos, but
That's fair.
my dad's very tatted up.
Yeah. All right. Very cool. Do you want to tell us about what it is, or you want to keep it a secret?
No, I'll tell you.
You're like, I'm going to talk about it, but not directly. You're going to have to figure it out on your own.
No, I'm not going to be mysterious at all. I'm too excited about it. It is the two skeletal mermen from the Our Flag Means Death Season 2 promo pirate flag. The one holding the heart and the one holding a spear, and they've got their hands curled around each other. It's very cute.
It is so cute.
Very excited. Also, it looks badass.
Yeah, it does. It really does. Like, I have worked in a lot of settings where I've worked with people with criminal records and, like incarceration issues, and some of them don't have tattoos as badass as that, just saying.
Well, that's I think that's a good thing. I'm not sure.
I think what I'm trying to say is a compliment, but it might not be coming across that way.
Yeah, okay.
It looks cool, is what I'm trying to say. And I do have a thing for skeletons, so
Yes.
I'm all about it.
I love little skeletons. They're so cute.
Yeah, I jumped on the Our Flag Means Death train or boat rather late, and so I didn't know that was promotional material for them. But I did guess that was where it was from when I saw it.
Yes.
So I'm proud of myself.
Yeah, I sent it to my brother, and he was like, "What's that mean?"
It means watch television, you uncultured swine.
Now. No, I was like, how do I explain this? How do I explain 18 episodes of
Perfection.
comedy?
Oh, it's such a good show.
I know.
I am really glad you turned me onto it. And that you gave me my little bean.
Yes.
I love beans.
He's so cute.
Thank you.
All right. So, what are we talking about this week?
This week we are talking about our favorite movies.
Yay! But I will say we're doing something extra special. We're not just going to talk about our favorite movies.
What?
I have this theory that everybody has 4 favorite movies.
Ooh.
And so the first one is the one you tell people is your favorite.
Okay.
Like when somebody says, "What's your favorite movie?" That's what you tell them.
Okay.
And it's usually a movie you really do love.
Right.
But it's probably, a little bit artsy, maybe a little pretentious, makes you sound cool and more cultured than you possibly are.
If you could see my face right now, I'm like, oh, I'm getting called out for all of my shit. Got it.
The second one is the one that's your real favorite. I will not call it a guilty pleasure because I don't have guilt about pleasure.
That's fair.
But it's the one that you really like. If you're homesick and sad and you want something to make you feel better, that's the movie you're gonna watch.
That's literally the exact criteria I went off of. I was like, this is my comfort film.
Yes.
Like when I'm home alone and I'm puking or whatever, like this is the movie I put on.
Yes, this is the movie you've seen 1,000 times. You can probably quote it.
Yeah.
Like you really love this movie,
Oh,
regardless of any artistic merit it may or may not have.
Oh man, 2 of those movies might be on my list.
The third one is the one that made you fall in love with movies as an art form.
Mm.
So the movie that you were sitting there and you were like, something clicked and you were like, oh my God, I love movies.
Yeah.
I love storytelling. This is amazing.
Yeah.
And then the last one is the one you watched over and over as a kid. I have talked to friends, family, many other people. Everybody seems to have one movie that they just hyperfixated on as a kid and watched until their parents wanted to hide in our case, VHS tape.
Yep. Yep, I actually talk about the VHS tape of one of my movies.
Oh my God.
In my list. And I will also say, I'm going to get this out of the way right now, that I am a pretentious art student and film student. So I actually did go to film school in LA for a semester. So some of this stuff that made my list. Like when we talk about the movie that made you fall in love with movies, I'm going to try not to be a pretentious asshole, but
It's fine.
We'll see.
You're going to hear about my proximity to pretentious art film students today.
You attract a type, I guess.
Apparently. No, I'm not going to put that on you. You don't deserve that.
Thank you. Thank you. I appreciate that. All right. So, start us off with the movie that you tell people is your favorite movie.
So the movie I tell people is my favorite movie is Miller's Crossing.
Okay. I've never seen it.
You haven't seen it? Well, note to self. For
Damn.
an evening when we don't have anything else to watch. Miller's Crossing is kind of a modern take on film noir. It's also kind of delving into like aspects of mythology. It's a hard film to explain. It's a little bit of a fever dream of a film. It is directed by Ethan and Joel Coen brothers.
Yeah.
And they do that a lot, where they kind of play around with mythology and with specific genres in certain ways.
Right.
This one in particular, I don't actually remember when I first saw this movie, but I remember when I first heard about it. And I was at the Georgia Governor's Honors Program when I was 17. It was this thing, it was basically nerd camp.
I love that.
So
better than Christian camp, I can guarantee.
Oh, I also went to Christian camp, and I promise you it was. So I went to nerd camp for the summer between my junior and senior year of high school. It was a formative experience, quite literally changed the trajectory of my life.
Oh, that's awesome.
But we had different classes every week, and one week we had a class where we were talking about film.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we were talking specifically about obscenity in film and its uses and its purpose. And one of the scripts that we read was the scene from Miller's Crossing. And my favorite line is, there's two characters talking to each other. One of them her name is Verna. And the guy she's talking to, whose name I've actually forgotten, it's been too long since I saw this movie, he says something like, intimidating helpless woman is what I do. And she said, okay, then find one and intimidate her.
Love that.
I love that line. It's one of my favorites.
What?
And it's just such a good.
That's awesome.
I won't say it's a fun movie because like people die. Like
yeah,
it's a dark film in a lot of ways, but it is a very engaging watch.
I love that.
And it has really not even snappy dialogue, just really well crafted dialogue.
That's important.
Sticks in your brain.
Yeah.
It also is, oh my god, what is his name? The guy who loves intimidating helpless women. You know what? I won't say his name because that would be a Bechdel violation. Never mind.
I'm going to violate so many Bechdel tests, or so many violations. That's not real. Anything I just said is not real. It was not a real sentence.
I will say, Marcia Gay Harden plays Verna.
Nice.
And she is immaculate
in that movie. Love that.
Absolute femme fatale. Perfect.
Beautiful. So let's go ahead and mark me down for points for the after episode description now, because I'm too much of a film snob to not name the people who are involved.
Oh crap, I named Ethan and Joel, so.
Oh, dang.
I already got two. I'm not going to name the actor too.
You're like, fuck it. All right, so the movie that I typically say when people ask me what my favorite movie is Bernie. Have you ever seen Bernie?
I haven't seen Bernie.
Okay, so this is based on a true story, and not to cross any of our lines with our podcast, but it is a true crime story that it's based on. I know, this is like walking right up to the line. But Jack Black actually plays a serious role in this film. Ooh. And it's amazing. Like, I'll get into it. He's fantastic. Shirley MacLaine, who is 84, by the way. I just felt like that was important to throw in there. She plays this vindictive old woman, not plural.
Plural woman.
So, without giving too much away, Jack Black's character, who is this flamboyant single man in a small Texas town, and he loves the town and befriends this older, extremely rich woman, Shirley MacLaine. She becomes very manipulative in their relationship, and abuses him emotionally. But because she has no family or any other friends, he becomes the legal guardian of all of her property, and he's allowed to make decisions for her.
Okay.
She dies, and Bernie, Jack Black's character, decides not to tell anyone. He keeps using the money for the benefit of the town. If you had to guess, because you know a fair amount about directors, we won't go into it, who would direct a movie like this, who would you guess?
Oh, gosh. See, I did tell you I have proximity to Film Bros, and I should know so many directors' names off the top of my head, but I actively worked to forget them.
That's fair. That's so fair. So then I won't quiz you.
Steven Soderbergh? That is
Nope.
unlikely.
No. It was actually directed by Matthew McConaughey.
Really?
Yep.
I didn't know he directed things.
Yep. I think it's the only film he's directed, if I'm not mistaken. And it actually features his mother as a side character. One of the things that I really love about this movie is the way that it's told is sort of like a mockumentary. So it's like interviews with townspeople, and then it's intercut and edited with sort of like reenactments, quote unquote, by Jack Black and Shirley MacLaine.
Interesting.
Yeah. So what I love about this movie, I could go on, but Jack Black in a serious role is excellent. Even if you have to sort of push his character acting and other roles like to the side, right? Like you have to kind of forget that he has done all of these other comedic things. You have to sort of push that to the side, which can be difficult. And I totally understand that, because when I've shared this movie with other people, they're like, I just can't not see Nacho Libre, or I just can't not see whatever. And it's like, I get that. But if you can move that aside and look at him as an actor in this role, he does phenomenally. The interviews with the townsfolk are funny and interesting. Like, they make jokes about Texas that are funny. They make jokes about, like, homosexuality that's funny. This movie is very queer-coded. It's a really unique way to experience this true crime story unfolding, in the sense that, like, most of the time when you experience true crime, right, in other podcasts, not ours, it's kind of that same sort of feel, right? Like you're experiencing it from the people who were affected by it, and it's very much that same style. But then we're also getting to watch what's happening in real time. It's good. I'm not gonna keep describing it. It's good. Go watch it. It's twisty and turny in ways that seem like they can't be true to life, but are, which is also very interesting. Like I said, it's very queer-coded. Black's character, Bernie, the sexuality is openly debated among the interviewees, as it was in real life. And most of them are like, it wouldn't matter if he was gay, but he never said. And something about that really touched me about this movie. I experienced this movie when I was in film school. And I was in film school, but it was still part of my Christian education, which is an interesting, like, going to film school, but going to Christian film school. It's like a whole thing. But at the time that I was experiencing this, it was sort of this, like, it hadn't occurred to me that people wouldn't care. Like, it hadn't occurred to me that, like, even in a small town like that, where it was very conservative, that people would just be like, yeah, it's not a big deal. We love you for who you are. Because that just wasn't a reality for me. He was just a likable, lovable guy, which is why he was able to get away with some of the things that he did. And it was just, it was just an interesting, he presents a very dynamic character. One of the reasons that I really like this movie is that the time of my life where it hit me, like, Bernie in that film is having to make all these decisions about the kind of person that he wants to be in these extraordinary circumstances. And I think that the time in my life where I encountered it, I was also sort of having to make decisions in extraordinary circumstances about the type of person I wanted to be. And seeing the acceptance that he got, even if it was after the fact, was encouraging in some way of like, well, I don't want to end up like Bernie. So if I can do the things that are going to make me feel more comfortable, maybe people will accept me anyway. Maybe they're waiting to accept me. And that turned out to be true. So that's my first movie.
I love that. Yeah. No, that's amazing. I would have to watch that, because I personally will have no problem putting aside Jack Black's previous roles, partly because the only Jack Black movie I've ever seen is School of Rock,
Yeah,
which is incredible.
it is.
Plus, he's just such a cool guy.
He really is.
Like, he's genuinely a cool guy.
And I'm genuinely attracted to him.
Oh, yeah.
Which I know, like, is not going to surprise some of my exes. But, like, I think that his personality and his kindness and his sense of humor are incredibly attractive.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, love Jack Black. I'll take a point from the Bechdel test for Jack Black.
You know what? I will, too. For Jack.
For Jack. Let's drink. We'll drink for Jack.
We'll drink for Jack.
All right, so what's your next one? This is the one that is actually your favorite movie.
Yes, this is the one that's my real favorite, and I will have more to say about this one
Go for it.
because, so first of all, I had such a hard time narrowing this down to one. And I'm going to tell you my runners-up. But
Okay.
the reason I had such a hard time is that for a really long time in my childhood, it was one movie.
Yeah.
And then from probably my preteen years all the way until 2021, it was a different movie.
Okay.
And then since 2021, a new movie has taken the throne there. And
So who are the runners up?
so when I was a child, it was Return of the Jedi.
That's good.
I read the novelization. I watched the movie until I could memorize it. I loved that movie so much.
Yeah.
Is it technically the best Star Wars movie? I would argue no. But is it my favorite? Absolutely.
There are worse Star Wars movies.
There are absolutely. Don't even get me started. We could do an entire episode just on that. Just me info dumping about what's wrong.
I was gonna say, I think if we do that, we might have to invite my partner on as a special guest because he also has a lot of opinions.
I would, you know what? I would be fine with that.
So maybe 1 week when I'm out sick, I'll be like, go record with April.
Go yell about the sequels. Although I'm a prequel defender, I don't know if we'll get along on that front.
I don't know. They shouldn't have kissed in the end. Anyway, moving on.
And-
Fine.
So that was it. And then when I became a preteen, a little film, little known film, you may not have heard of it, called Bring It On,
Okay.
and convinced me I wanted to be a competitive cheerleader for
Love
a hot
that.
second until I tried going to cheer camp.
Mm.
No, thank you.
Still better than church camp.
Still better than church camp, you're right.
I think that's gonna be my new saying.
Still better than church
Still
camp.
better than church camp.
But I was obsessed with that film. It was I learned all of the cheers from it, all of the dances. It was one of the first films that, like, the main romance in it made me feel things.
Mm.
It was also one of the first films where I got to see a teen girl doing something very stereotypical teen girly
Yeah.
that wasn't, like, denigrated and that was, like, given importance within the narrative.
Yeah.
And there was also something about it that was just, I don't know. It was a bonding experience. I watched it at sleepovers. I still watch it at sleepovers. Like, I don't know if you know this, but there are 7 sequels to that movie.
What?
There are 7.
So you want to know something that's embarrassing?
Mm-hmm.
I've never seen it. the daggers in your eyes.
It's not daggers. It's how do I get us to have a sleepover so we can watch this movie?
Girl, you just have to ask. I'm already here.
In fact, how do we? Would it be wrong to watch all 7 of them? I will say.
Let's wait till we get to my last movie, then we can talk about what series we can watch.
Okay, I will say the 7 sequels are not all. None of them are as good as the original.
That's
first of all.
fair.
The original was unique. It was Eliza Dushku. It was Kirsten Dunst.
Yeah.
It was whoever played the dude that she falls in love with in the movie.
Doesn't matter.
It doesn't matter. It was Gabrielle Union as Isis, like, just an iconic film.
Yeah.
It was also one of the first films I ever saw where there are queer characters in the film
Yeah.
that are, like, their queerness isn't treated like something that they're ashamed of.
Like an issue.
Like, none of their friends care.
Yeah.
Yeah, they experience, there's a couple of situations where people are mean to them because they're queer, but they're so unbothered by it, and
Yeah.
they're so confident regardless.
Mhm.
And there's even like a little romantic moment. And it was, God, when did this movie come out? Like 2001, 2000?
Good time.
Like, that was the first time I had ever seen that.
Yeah.
Like, every time I ever saw queer characters in film, every other time up to that point, they were all sad.
Yeah.
Or evil. Or dead. Or all three somehow.
A sad, evil, dead queer person, though. Dracula?
I was thinking of Tara and Willow.
Oh, yeah.
Sad, evil, dead. Not one of them all three at the same time, but
Yeah.
for that couple.
Yeah.
But yeah, that I don't know, it's such a special movie for me. It's so fun. The most recent sequel was a slasher film,
Ooh.
which I found fascinating, and I
That is
liked it so
interesting.
much I bought it on DVD. It's sitting right over there. But that film was actually recently dethroned as my actual favorite movie. The real favorite, the one that if I'm homesick and sad, I'm gonna watch this movie, possibly on repeat. I would love to live in this movie, which is gonna make me sound insane.
No.
I have also said, and I stand by this, if I had seen this movie when I was in high school, no closet would have been able to contain me.
I have to know.
Have you seen the movie Nightbreed?
No.
It is technically a horror movie. I don't find it particularly scary.
Yeah.
It's from the, I think, late 80s, early 90s. It's Clive Barker, the guy who did Hellraiser, Candyman,
Gotcha.
absolute horror icon. So it is essentially this guy who looks like David Boreanaz, like a young David Boreanaz, with an 80s haircut. His name is Boone, and he has nightmares. He has dreams. He has dreams that he is running with and being chased by monsters to a place called Midian. And he tells his psychiatrist about these dreams. This part, you might not like this part.
Oh, no.
He also has had dreams about killing people. At the start of the movie, he is talking to his psychiatrist about his dreams of Midian, and his psychiatrist reveals to him that he is concerned because some of the dreams where Boone kills people, the details match recent murders in the area. And he is basically telling Boone, we need to figure this out. I will help you go to the police if that's what we need to do, but I don't want you hurting anybody. I don't want you getting hurt. And he gives Boone some medication, and Boone leaves. The medication he gave him was not what he said it was. And Boone essentially dissociates and accidentally runs into traffic. He is alive, but he's taken to the hospital, and he meets a guy who starts talking to him about Midian in the hospital.
Interesting.
And this guy is like, what do you know about Midian? And Boone says that it's the place where the monsters go. And they forgive you there. I'm not going to go through the entire plot, but essentially Boone eventually gets to Midian. And the first time he goes, he's rejected. Because they say that he's not Nightbreed. He isn't a killer. They would know if he was. And this creature bites him. And he escapes. And he gets killed after he leaves Midian. And he comes back to life because of the bite that he received. And when he goes back to Midian, then they accept him.
Huh.
So, and then a whole bunch of other stuff happens. But essentially, it's the story of somebody who dreams of a place where he can be, where the things in himself that he feels are monstrous are accepted.
That's amazing.
Welcomed, even. And nobody is ever stated to be explicitly queer, but it's such a queer movie.
Yeah.
It's such a kind of almost like a queer escapist fantasy.
Yeah.
In a way. And like Boone is kind of like the queer messiah in it. It's so much. I can't even describe it. Like when I say I want to live in the movie, what I really mean is I want to live in Midian.
Yeah.
Because it's the place where all of the people who don't fit in the world go. And as an adult watching it for the first time, I recognized if child me had seen this, it would have broken and fixed something.
Yeah.
Because growing up queer and closeted in an evangelical Christian household really does things to you.
Yeah.
Really makes you label parts of yourself monstrous erroneously. Yeah. I watch it at least twice a year.
So I feel like we're adding all of these movies to our sleepover.
Like, oh, yeah. All of them.
Like, because I'm like, oh my god, I definitely have to watch that.
It's so good.
That sounds really interesting. And to be clear, the only thing that really offended me about that storytelling was that the psychiatrist was so shifty.
Oh,
that's what offended me.
You don't know the half of it. Like, I left out some of the details because I'm like, you'll hate this movie.
That's my chosen profession, which again, we should state for legal purposes, nothing we say here is to be construed as advice. But like, that's my profession. That's what I do for my day job. That's not ethical practice.
No.
I would report this guy.
Nothing this guy does is ethical practice.
Damn.
For sure. He's also played by David Cronenberg, which is such
interesting
a moment. Also, I have to tell you this because you'll appreciate this as a Buffy fan.
Yes.
You know that scene in, I think it's season 2 of Buffy, where like Angel, she's kissing Angel and he like, his face does the vampire, like vamps out, and he like turns away and then she pulls him back and she kisses his gross creepy vamp face.
Yeah.
Like, first of all, mood, girl.
Like, I rolled my eyes so hard. I'm surprised you can't hear it on the podcast.
But secondly, Joss Whedon ripped that off from Nightbreed.
Nuh-uh.
Oh yeah. It's really noticeable because the actor looks so much like a young David Boreanaz. Like, it's wild.
That's so interesting.
But that exact scenario plays out.
Dang.
In Nightbreed with a character that is very, like, is never called a vampire, but is very similar to.
Yeah.
Like, he drinks blood, he's undead. He can't be in the sunlight.
Sure.
He's a vampire.
Right.
Essentially.
Right.
And I'm like, Joss, I see you, sir.
So you're going to take the Bechdel point for him, but not. No, it's
God.
Fine. Gotcha. Crap. Gotcha. All right, so it's good that you went longer on that one because the one that I have is definitely going to be shorter. My sort of, I'm at home, I don't feel well, go-to movie is this little film you may have never heard of called Jurassic Park.
Oh!
So if you don't know who directed it, look it up. It was because I'm not going to take the Bechdel point for him. It was based on a book. You can look up the guy who wrote that book too, because I'm not going to get the Bechdel point for him. So if you don't know the plot of Jurassic Park, I'm sorry that rock you've been living under has been there for so long. But a bunch of researchers are invited to an island to tour a park full of genetically reconstituted dinosaurs. Chaos ensues, basically. So let's talk about why I love this movie, because that's more important than the actual plot. If you haven't seen it, again, like, why is my number one question. And my number 2 question is, like, when can we meet so that I can show it to you? Like, that's the next important thing. So I want to say, first of all, I had anxiety when I was a kid. It's something that has traveled with me forever. Thanks, genetics. And so I got scared really easily, so I wasn't allowed to watch this movie until I was 9 years old. But looking back at it, like, that seems like the right age to watch that movie. It's kind of intense. Like, I got made fun of by my siblings, who are all older than me, because they were like, you can't even watch Jurassic Park, ooh, you get scared so easy. And I'm like, literally, I heard about flesh-eating bacteria and, like, hid in my bed for days. So, like, yeah, a movie about dinosaurs chasing me around a park was going to be a big deal. Mm-hmm. Anyway, it's my mom's favorite movie. So that it's, like, got that nostalgic thing for me where, like, when I'm watching it, I'm just like, oh, thinking of my mom and, like, warm chicken noodle soup, gluten-free, of course. The other thing is it's a classic for a reason. It's a good film.
It holds up.
It does. And so, again, even though it's a series of films that have gotten wilder and more intense, the first one still stands out stalwart to me as a model of what it is to be a good movie. It's just a real good thriller. Once again, because I already have the Bechdel point for him, Matthew McConaughey is in Jurassic Park. Did you know that?
No.
Yeah, he's the talking DNA strand.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Oh my god. I did not know that.
Yeah.
You're gonna laugh that I didn't know that in a minute.
Oh no. But yeah, so anyway, that cracks me up every time because it's like one of those things where like once you see it, you can't unsee it, like the arrow in FedEx.
Oh my god.
Laura fucking Dern. Can we just talk about Laura fucking Dern for a minute?
The things that woman did for my little brain wanting to be a scientist, for hiking shorts.
Literally, the woman's character sticks her hands like elbow deep into shit to be able to do what the men can't or won't do.
I love her.
Can we just talk about that for a minute? For just a minute. Like, no wonder she's a freaking queer icon. She's amazing. And then, of course, the men who are in the film are also very good. I'm not taking the points for them.
There's one I would almost take a point for if I hadn't already gotten docked for that guy. The guy
you can say it now. You already
Whedon.
said it. But also, the other thing is that the special effects in this movie really do stand the test of time. A lot of it is puppeteering. Even if it's not scientifically accurate, I do sometimes watch it and like imagine feathers on the raptors because it makes me happy. But other than that, it, like, the puppeteering is good, the CGI is good. There's only a couple of moments where it really breaks and you're like, eh. But for the most part, it still stands up. So, Jurassic Park. That's all I got.
I love that. You're gonna laugh when we get to one of my later ones.
Oh no. I'm sure I will. You're a naturally funny person.
Thank you.
Yeah, so we're gonna take a real quick break. And leave a bit of silence so that I know that this is where the break is. Okay, April, welcome to our inaugural halfway point, which is we're gonna do what we call Woman of the Week. It's important to talk about people who have had a historic and important impact on the world, and specifically women and trans people who don't often get the recognition that they so deserve. So, I figured for our first Woman of the Week, I would tell you a little bit about my favorite, one of my patron saints, Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Yes.
Are you familiar?
I am familiar.
Well, that's good.
RBG.
RBG, yes. So I'm just going to tell you a little bit about who she is and why she's important. So, Ruth Bader Ginsburg was the second female nominated to the U.S. Supreme Court after Sandra Day O'Connor. She was the first Jewish woman on the Supreme Court. She has degrees from Cornell, Harvard, and Columbia. The woman is smart. Was smart, forgive me. She was instrumental in the Equal Protection Clause of the 14th Amendment, which the Supreme Court used to extend protections and rights to women. She wrote that. She also did this really great thing where she argued for widowers' rights. So widows, wives of men who had died, were able to get Social Security from their husbands who had passed, especially if they had children. However, men whose wives had passed and had children were not allowed to collect on the Social Security for them, on their wives who had passed.
Doesn't seem fair.
It isn't. And she argued that it was discrimination based on gender. And she won. I feel like that's an important case to bring up because when we talk about gender discrimination, a lot of what she focused on was like fighting for her cause in a kind of a sneaky or ingenious way, right? Like this, like, I'm going to think outside the box because discrimination isn't just one way, was her whole argument. And she won based on that. She also argued against discrimination based on gender in Oklahoma, where younger women were allowed to purchase alcohol and young men of the same age were not allowed to, because the thinking was that women were more mature than young men, which is arguable in its own right.
Yeah.
But she argued that it was discrimination based on gender, again, and that men weren't allowed to do what women could do. And so the Supreme Court made a decision based on that argument and ruled that it was unconstitutional.
That is an excellent way to get precedent set around gender discrimination.
Those are two of her biggest cases that she did before she even got on the Supreme Court. That was like when she was a lawyer and a mom and doing all the things that like a lawyer, a mom, and a wife does. And she did all of that.
It's amazing.
So she came to the Supreme Court of the United States, where she started the practice of reading dissents from the bench. So one of the things that she is most often quoted as saying is, "I dissent," right? So the reason that is because previously, if you had a dissenting opinion on the bench, you would just write it and publish it and file it away, right? Sometimes newspapers would pick it up and say like, blah, blah, blah. But like, that's all that it was. She started reading her dissent from the bench. So she literally said, "I dissent, and here are the reasons why," in front of the people that were losing or winning or whatever. Which I just think, like, that's badass.
Yeah.
That's badass. Especially when, for a period of time, she was the only female on the Supreme Court. So, like, yeah, she just was going to do what she wanted to do and didn't care what the boys thought, which, like, good for her. She, as a member of SCOTUS, she continued to protect and defend women's rights under the 14th Amendment. She also ruled that mental illness is a form of disability under the American Disabilities Act, which is huge for me and my profession and my mental illness. But like all heroes, all people, she is not perfect. There are some things that she ruled on that I have to disagree with. And I think that if we're going to talk about women and how important they are, we also have to talk about how sometimes people are people and they get it wrong, right?
Yeah, I agree.
There were a couple of rulings that she made that specifically harmed Native Americans, which I have written here is not a cute look or an admissible fault, right? So she ruled that, the specific cases are leaving my mind at the moment. For that, I apologize. This is why I take notes. But she ruled that Native Americans had fewer rights on reservations and things that were not necessarily things that I agree with, right?
Yeah,
taking away some sovereignty and stuff that was not great. So if you are hearing that and you're like, oh, well, she's not that great, like, she is a person. And like most people, she's made mistakes. But I also love what she represents to women and minorities in general, that you can fight for the things you care about, but to do it in a way that can lead others to join you, which is actually an RBG quote. Fun fact, she was also BFFs with another, I'm not taking the Bechdel point for it, I'm being like so cautious, for another SCOTUS member who they were in opposing political opinion. So he was very conservative and very trying to determine what the founding fathers meant, where she was much more progressive and like trying to see like, well, how does this apply to the world today? So they often were on opposite sides of arguments, but they became best friends and would like go to the opera together and hang out together and do stuff together, which was wild.
Couldn't be me.
It takes a strong person to do that. Like, I don't know that I could do that.
Yeah. It definitely takes a certain kind of person.
Yeah, for sure. But that's all I have for you about RBG.
I love that. I love, what was it? I feel like it was RBG. I remember seeing a video clip of her in an interview. Somebody actually had the audacity to ask her how many women should be on the Supreme Court. And I think she said, why not 9?
Yeah.
We've had 9 men for so many years. Why not 9? I loved that. And she had a point.
Yep. That's well, and I can't remember who it was from the Barbie movie that was interviewed, and they were like, "What's the one thing that you miss the most about Barbie Land?" And they're like, "The all-female Supreme Court." I was like, "Yeah,
absolutely
right." Well, thank you, RBG, for your contributions and for being our Woman of the Week.
Yes. We're back. So our next movie is the one that made you fall in love with movies as an art form. And I'm going to go first.
Okay.
You're going to laugh. Mine is Jurassic Park.
No,
Yes.
fuck off.
Yes.
Okay. All right, let's go. I
Um,
can't. I'm standing up. Let's do it.
So this film, I saw this film from a really young age.
Okay.
Because you know how our fourth one is the one you watched over and over as a kid?
Yeah.
Jurassic Park was my brother's
Okay.
one, and my brother is 3 years younger than me. So from the time I was probably 7 or 8 years old,
Mm-hmm.
I had seen this movie upwards of 100 times. I can quote it, not of my own volition, but because of that. And actually, for a long time, because of that, I kind of hated it
Mm.
because I had just seen it so much. I've been forced to watch it so much. But it does hold up so beautifully. It, like, so many of the effects were practical effects, and it really shows when you watch it. Like, I still feel, when I watch it today, I still feel that just moment of wonder when you see the Brontosaurus for the first time, and that music swells, and you feel like you're looking at dinosaurs.
Yeah.
Like, I remember how that felt as a kid the first time I saw it, but the moment that this became the movie that made me fall in love with movies was actually, I went with my film bro ex-boyfriend to New York for New Year's one year. And Jurassic Park was playing in a theater. They were doing a special showing.
Oh, that's cool.
And so I got to see it on the big screen. Steven Spielberg was one of his favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I took a Bechdel point for Spielberg.
All
I'll
right.
take it. Was one of his favorite directors. So he was like, oh, we've got to go see it. And I was like, I don't really want to go see Jurassic Park. I had to watch that movie so much as a kid because of my brother. And he was like, come on, we got to go see it. It's a classic. I was like, fine. We went to see it. And when I tell you, I was so mad that movie was so good. Because I was sitting there in the theater. It's huge. Like, the dinosaurs feel huge on your little home TV screen.
Yeah.
But when you, like, an entire wall of the room you're in is showing this on the screen, and the music is all you can hear as it's swelling, and then you see the Brontosaurus for the first time. Oh my God.
Yeah.
It was so incredible. It's such a good film. There's not a single moment where you feel bored or you feel like you're waiting for the next thing to happen. Oh my God. It's such a good movie. The storytelling, the themes of it, the characters, Laura Dern.
Laura fucking Dern.
Laura Dern on the big screen.
Yeah.
Unbeatable. And
you're right, those shorts, man.
those shorts. Also, she has that line where she says something about, like, we can talk about sexism and survival situations when I get back.
Yes.
Yes. girl.
Yes. Yes.
I love it so much. That movie, that was the moment, like, literal years of the film bro boyfriend nagging me about movies could not make me love movies like he did.
Yeah.
That moment, I was like, okay, I get it. I get it.
I get it.
Movies are great. Movies are incredible.
That's awesome.
I might have had tears in my eyes
Aww,
a couple
I
of
love
times.
it.
And, oh, if I could see it on the big screen again, I would.
Yeah.
It's unbeatable.
Ah, that's so cool. Now I really want to watch it like that. We should find a projector
We should.
when we do our sleepover.
Yes.
My movie that made me fall in love with movies is Moulin Rouge.
Oh, I love that movie.
So we talked a little bit about it last week. So again, it's sort of like if you're here and you haven't seen it, make sure you're old enough and then go watch it. And by make sure you're old enough, I don't know if that means like check the rings in your teeth. I don't know. But Moulin Rouge is a musical. A writer whose name is Christian and played by Ewan McGregor, I'll take the point, falls in love with a can-can dancer / sex worker named Satine, played by Nicole Kidman, in Bohemian France. The two have to keep their love affair secret because in order to produce the writer's show, they need a financial backer who is a duke and who is also head over heels for Satine and incredibly possessive. So the story is told from Christian's perspective as though he is writing the book that we're watching the movie of, if that makes sense. It begins with the woman I love is dead, and then starts from the beginning. I'm also going to take a point for Baz Luhrmann. Chef's Kiss. This is an excellent film. It is literally and figuratively colorful. It's a story filled with unique and forgettable main and background characters with an epic score to boot. So, gotta love it. Like you were saying about Jurassic Park, not a single moment of this film is wasteful. Every detail, every edit, every scene is a work of art. There's not a single moment where you could freeze frame and be like, no, that doesn't look right.
You all can't see it, but I'm just nodding. I'm completely at peace with this description.
I'm glad you're at peace. Again, the production value is incredible because of that. If you have seen some of the deleted scenes, then you know that this could have been a very different movie. Have you ever seen the deleted scenes?
Yes, I have it on DVD, and I have watched the features.
Yeah,
many times.
Yeah. Oh yeah. And some of the scenes are like, man, I wish that had made the movie. Mm-hmm. But there are some of them that are like, oh, I'm so glad this didn't make the movie because it would have made things way more weird and complicated and misunderstood.
Yeah.
Which is sort of how you know that the editing was what really brought it together. Now let's talk about the fucking music, yo.
Oh my god.
The score is mind-blowing. I do own the vinyl, so if sometimes we want to do like a listen in lattes, yes, we can listen to the vinyl. The mashups are epic. The vocals make you want to poop your pants in a good way. And they are so evidently emotive. Like talking about the way that it makes you feel. Like I still get like an ache, not really a pain, but like just that heartache at El Tango de Roxanne. Like yes, every single time. And Ewan McGregor, need I say more?
You needn't.
He's fucking gorgeous. I did say more.
Yeah, but
I'm gonna move
understand. On. Yeah.
And I think that one of the reasons that I really love this movie is because of the way that the story is told. We know at the beginning, Satine dies.
Yeah.
Like that's literally the first thing that we talk about. Satine is gonna die. And what is so great about this movie is that it really makes you care how. It becomes very important how that life is lived and how she dies, whether it's under her own circumstances or from someone else's. I mean, I just remember the moment that struck me while I was watching it and thinking like, this is beautiful. And I guess sort of realizing like, I didn't know story could bring me here. I didn't know story could bring me to a place of true contemplation that the how is what's important. Because I know what's coming. And sometimes, I mean, I fall into this trap a lot. I think I know something, and so I think I don't have to experience it. But this really is a movie that you kind of have to experience.
Yeah.
And I won't spoil it for you. Let's also not blow past the point of this being a hyperfixation for me when I was in my undergrad. Hey, B and Amanda, if you're listening to this, I see you, I know you, I love you, I miss you. Moulin Rouge and Sims, they were a coexisting space for a really long time in my friend group. So we would have Sims parties where we would either put on the soundtrack for Moulin Rouge or put on the movie and like literally just have it on repeat while we played Sims for hours and hours and hours.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was a little obsessed with it. So I don't think it's an exaggeration to say that I've seen this movie 100 times. But it is the movie that made me fall in love with movies.
And I get that. I love what you said too about like the thing that matters being the how, because that is so true. Like this was a big sleepover movie for me as a teenager.
When are we doing it?
We used to, all of the girls would pile into my room at nerd camp.
Yeah.
And we would watch Moulin Rouge more than once.
I love that.
But it is so important how, and it's also, what's fun for me is whenever I watch this movie, I feel like I almost forget for a minute.
Yeah.
How it's going to end.
Yeah. Every time.
like I'm so caught up in the love story and the happiness and the chaos of it that for a minute I'm able to forget.
Yeah.
And then I remember.
Mm-hmm.
And then I have to grieve all over again. And I feel like that's an incredible thing for a film to do the first time, much less every time you watch it.
Yeah, I couldn't have said it better myself. That's 1,000% true.
It's speaking of Baz Luhrmann films, it's kind of like Romeo and Juliet.
Mm.
Every time I read Romeo and Juliet, at least when I was a kid, I would hope it would end different. Like, I hope she wakes up a little sooner.
Yeah.
I hope he gets there a little slower.
Yeah.
Like, I hope that the friar manages to get the message to him.
Right.
Every single time.
That desperation,
Mm-hmm.
right? Oh man, we could go on forever.
I love it.
We want to make sure that this podcast isn't like 3 hours long, because it could be.
I will say I also feel you on the deleted scenes, because I did get to see the Broadway show.
Jealous. I'm angry. It's fine. We can still be friends.
I prefer the film.
Really?
The changes they made to the Broadway show, I feel like made it a much less sympathetic love story.
Interesting.
And the how really does matter, because the how made me care less about their whole relationship.
Wow.
In the Broadway show.
That's interesting. We'll have to talk about that later.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, that's my movie that made me fall in love with movies.
An impeccable choice.
Thank you.
I'm gonna have to watch that movie again soon.
I only make good choices. Girl, at our sleepover. Stop it. Don't play like you don't know what's happening next.
It's happening. So the last one is the one film we watched over and over as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean like a kid. Like,
oh, that's not, well, yeah, mine still applies. It's fine.
Yeah. So mine was The Lion King.
That was gonna be mine.
Really?
Oh my god.
Oh my
Is
God.
it queer coded or something?
I don't know. It's Hamlet with lions, you know?
Yeah.
But like,
So inappropriate for children.
I know. For me, it was a combination of things. It was the music.
Mm-hmm.
It's such good music.
Mm-hmm.
It was one of the few instances. So Disney has this thing now, especially where they tend to have a character that's very clearly just there to sell toys.
Yeah.
And that character is the most annoying character in any film most of the time.
I have no idea what you're all off talking about.
I will say in the sequel he was less annoying.
Yeah, I'll agree.
But
And Josh Gad is a national treasure.
Yes.
That's fine.
But
Damn it! I took a Bechdel point for him.
well, he is a national treasure.
He is a national treasure.
So, but in the case of Timon and Pumbaa,
Mm-hmm.
I feel like they were there as actual characters. They meant something to the story. They mattered to the journey that Simba was going on. They had a point beyond just selling toys.
Yeah.
And they were also really funny.
Yeah.
And yeah, it is kind of queer. Because first of all, you have the Disney thing of making all of their villains queer-coded.
Yeah.
Scar. You have the best villain song.
Yeah. Ooh, yeah. Even with the Nazi overtones.
Even though my favorite villain song personally is Poor Unfortunate Souls from The Little Mermaid.
Same.
I love to sing that song.
Same. Chica, I tried out for a part.
Yes.
Oh my god.
I was her for Halloween one year. I have pictures.
April!
But
I'm like, why aren't we friends?
we are friends.
We are. We're doing a podcast together. Oh my god.
But
Have you left the party yet, by the way? If you haven't. Okay.
but Scar's villain song,
Yeah,
is incredible. Yes, it does have some creepy fascist overtones to the visuals.
but fascists were bad, and I can get behind that.
Yes, I can get behind it when the fascists are the villains, because that's like how it works.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
how it should be.
He's an icon. Like, he's evil and bad, but he's an icon.
Oh, for sure.
He is. If Gaslight Gatekeep Girl Boss were a character.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like he's got big, like, gay uncle energy. You know what I
He
mean?
does.
Like, he's very, yeah.
And, you know, Disney does that a lot, and shame on them for it, but also then I end up identifying with those characters, and then I discover things about myself later in life. But also, you have Timon and Pumbaa dressing in drag and doing the hula as a drag.
Yeah.
And I remember as a child asking my grandmother what drag was. And her being like, I don't know if you should watch this anymore. Which let me know it had to be something fun.
Right.
That's what evangelical Christians tell you shouldn't know about. Sorry, Mima.
I feel like that has to be something that my parents asked if I knew what it meant. That was often the test for whether or not you'll find out. coming up here in a few minutes.
Oh boy.
But that was often the test of like, do you know what this means? And if I said no, which again, I didn't realize this till I was an adult because I was just an ignorant little kid. But if I said no, they were like, okay, then it's acceptable. As long as I don't understand it, it's fine.
Yeah.
Not understanding the messages that would send to my little brain. Anyway.
Yeah, that concerning.
I didn't say it was great.
I know. but I feel like the same. Like I was allowed to engage with that media because I didn't know.
Yeah.
And once I did know, it became a problem. One day, let me tell you about the time I watched Rent in front of my grandmother. That was fun.
I still haven't seen that either.
I got a dish towel thrown at me. Oh my God, we're watching it.
I know. Girl, stop. We've already got such a long marathon list. I'm going to be here for 3 days.
Speaking of formative queer media.
Oh, Lord.
But yes, Lion King, epic music, epic journey. One of the most things that traumatize millennials as children.
Yeah.
All of them have to do with animals.
Yep.
But Mufasa, the betrayal of Mufasa.
Yep.
Is something I never recovered from.
Nope. I still talk to my therapist about it. I can't tell you how many clients come to me.
That and
because they're still fucked up over Mufasa.
That and Artax. I bet you've gotten some people Artax. I'm fucked up over Artax.
Between Mufasa's death and what's the other? I have a concussion. It doesn't matter. Moving on.
But yes, that one, I watched that movie. I would literally watch the movie, and it was a VHS tape, so this was a little hardcore of me. I would watch the movie, rewind it, and watch it again.
Yep.
And I would do that until I was made to stop.
Yep.
Until the VHS started to disintegrate a little bit, and the quality started to get bad.
Mm-hmm.
I think we had to rebuy it. Because... And what's funny is, I think my grandmother won it at a raffle. Like, she won the movie at a raffle as a prize.
That's so interesting.
And then I became obsessed with it, and she wished she hadn't.
Ain't that just the way?
Oh, yes.
That's funny. Well, thank you for that. Now we're going to go to the movie that I watched a bunch as a kid. And I want to preface by saying... I don't want to preface by saying anything. I don't have to defend myself.
No, you don't.
This is a safe space. Have you ever seen Tremors?
I have not seen Tremors, but I've seen the cover of the DVD.
Well, add it to the list, baby, because Tremors is my rewatched so much as a child. It's incredible.
I'm about to lose a Bechdel point.
Go for it.
Kevin Bacon.
Yeah.
If it has Kevin Bacon in it, I will watch it.
Yeah.
That's a different conversation for a different time.
That's an off-podcast conversation. I got you. All right, so a little bit about Tremors. In the geographically isolated desert town of Perfection, Nevada, population 14, Valentine, played by Kevin Bacon, and Earl, played by Fred Ward, yeah, I know I'm taking the points, y'all, are two handymen that are looking for new ways to make big plans. A university student from a nearby college named Rhonda, who's played by Finn Carter, has been assigned to the town to monitor seismic activity, and Val is disappointed that she isn't the ideal woman for him. Too bad, so sad, Kevin Bacon.
Could not be me.
Meanwhile, some townsfolk on the outskirts of the main road of town, basically, mysteriously go missing or are found dead. So it's up to Val, Earl, and Rhonda to work together with the remaining townsfolk to discover, survive, and make a plan to get out of Perfection. And yes, they're running from giant worms. I'm embarrassed. I'm not embarrassed because I love it.
Don't be embarrassed.
And
no guilt about pleasures.
That's right. The reason that I love it is that, like all good sci-fi horror movies, feminism. Rhonda never, not even once, asks the men what they should do next. Right, yeah, you can clap.
I'm clapping.
Pretty fucking great. In fact, they are actually constantly asking her to the point that in the film she reflects back to them, why do you think I would know? It's amazing. Let's also talk real quickly about Reba McEntire. Why are we talking about Reba McEntire? Because she is also in this film.
Why aren't we talking about Reba McEntire?
Exactly! She also never once asks what to do next and actually recommends weapons. to the other townsfolk. She's married to, and I am proud to take this Bechdel point, she is married to Burt Gummer, who is played by Michael Gross. We'll talk about why he's amazing in a bit. So the two characters that talk the most about romance and relationships are actually Val and Earl, which is very interesting and cool to me. Yeah, so I put, this movie would pass the Bechdel test if any of the women actually had a conversation with one another. That is is a bit of a problem.
That is the definition.
They all kind of have conversations around each other, and with the men, they don't really talk to each other one-on-one, which is problematic.
Yeah.
But the female characters themselves are very well-rounded and amazing. And let's take a moment to be honest that one of my first queer awakening moments was Finn Carter running away from a giant worm. No subtext there. In her underwear.
Jesus.
So, yeah. But to the director's credit, it's totally not a sexualized scene. It's not unnecessarily prolonged. It's literally just a survival tactic in the course of the story. And I love that because it further shows the ingenuity and capability of her character.
Nice.
So let's also take a minute to talk a little bit about the racism. Yes, there is an Asian storekeeper who's named Walter, and I'm going to take the point for him too, played by Timothy Lowe, who is seemingly obsessed with profits. And this is obviously a hurtful trope in a lot of Wild West stories. And I don't want to undersell that. I don't want to understate that. Mm-hmm. Also, in subsequent films, that character's granddaughter takes over the store and is definitely much more of a multi-dimensional character. And if I'm not mistaken, it's been a hot minute since I've seen subsequent films. But I think that she actually points out, like, the reason the Asians moved out west was so that they could make more money and like, have a good living. So, like, even though in this first film it's not addressed, they kind of are aware.
They kind of did some reparative work in the sequels.
Yeah, in subsequent films. Which, again, doesn't necessarily excuse it, but they were really trying to be more conscious of what they were doing. There's also a Hispanic character who I'm also going to take the point for. His name is Miguel in the film, played by the Mexican-American Tony Gennaro. I say that because Tony Gennaro sounds like an Italian-ass name. But he is Mexican-American, I looked it up. But anyway, he's not a ranch hand, but actually owns his own cattle ranch in the film. And he survives to the end. Not 100% progressive on their racism checklist, but better than most horror films today.
Yeah. Horror films killing everybody who's not white was kind of a big problem for a long ass time.
Yeah, and still kind of is.
Yeah.
So yeah, for the time, it could have been worse, I guess is my point.
Not as big an asshole as you could have been. Gold star.
I don't think gold star, but maybe bronze star. B for effort. So I used to play Tremors at recess as a kid.
Oh, really?
This was like that. This was the level of obsession that I went to. Is I forced my friends to play Tremors at recess with me.
I love it. See, for me, it was just Sailor Moon.
I think it was actually probably, we were just talking about this, one of my first hyperfixations was Tremors. I was obsessed with that film.
I love that.
And the sequel, the second one, in my opinion, is on par with the first film, but it didn't make the list because I didn't have enough time. Mm-hmm. We also used to have this on VHS, but it was the cut for TV version. We recorded it from when it was on the Sci-Fi Channel or whatever. So I don't know if you remember this. Back in the day, they used to like sub out curse words.
Yes, I do. Oh my god.
So like when I would watch it as a kid, it was like all these words were replaced with like other phrases and stuff, and like whole scenes were missing. It was ridiculous. So then when I became an adult and I bought the DVD, I was like, yes, I'm gonna get to watch the movie. And I was still like a Christian at the time, so I'm watching it and I'm like, they cuss so much in this film. Like I was like so offended by it.
Kids today will never understand.
I know, like
streaming
it's
kind of
such a 90s relate like oh. Yeah, but it wasn't enough. It wasn't offensive enough to make me stop watching it.
I mean,
of course not.
Yeah.
I don't think that my parents understood the progressive messages that I was receiving from this film about female independence and intelligence. And just as a side note, this is why representation is important. Okay. Mm-hmm. I know you know that. I'm just saying for our listeners.
For our listeners.
But this movie is actually older than I am. It was released the year before I was born. And to me, it's a representation of innocence. I, because of the way that I was raised, missed out on a lot of popular media, quote unquote, because of my upbringing. And so the stuff that I was allowed to consume, I loved unapologetically. And this movie is imaginative, it's funny, it's thematic, it's a good story. The whole time, Val and Earl are literally trying to find a way out of perfection, and you can read that as religion. And they end up having to blow up practically the entire town to do it. And so if you look at it allegorically, it's so apt in a lot of ways. Let's talk about Michael Gross.
Okay, let's talk about Michael Gross.
He played Burt Gummer because apparently the last name Gunner was too obvious. He gets a big thumbs up from me based purely on his dedication to the Tremors series. There are 7 Tremors movies. Just like 7 Bring It On.
I was about to say, it's like Bring It On.
I know. And Michael Gross is in every single one.
That's beautiful.
The movies span 30 years. 30 fucking years, 7 movies, 4 different directors, all of them have Michael Gross in it.
I love that.
I know. He plays the gun-toting prepper, who has this long-running like love-hate relationship with the Graboids. Did you think that I wasn't going to name all 7 of the films? That's funny. So there's Tremors that came out in 1990, Tremors 2 Aftershocks, which came out in 1996, Tremors 3 Back to Perfection, which came out in 2001, Tremors 4 The Legend Begins, which is placed back in like the original like Wild West.
Ooh.
And so Michael Gross plays his ancestor.
Of course.
Anyway, that came out in 2004. Tremors 5 Bloodlines came out in 2015. Tremors A Cold Day in Hell came out in 2018. And Tremors Shrieker Island came out in 2020.
That is incredible.
Yeah. And in case you're curious, because I checked, no Me Too or any other like defamatory stuff has come out. Defamatory is not the right word. I have a concussion. What am I thinking?
Damning.
Thank you. Damning information or accusations have come out against Michael Gross. He's 76. He's been married to his wife since 1984, so they're coming up on their 40th wedding anniversary.
Wow.
He's a fan of model and in real life trains, so he's as wholesome as they come, and I love him.
That is lovely. And frankly, it shouldn't be refreshing.
Yeah.
But it is.
It is.
And rare.
76-year-old who's been in movies for 30 years, not an asshole. Like somehow that breaks the internet.
Wild. I did not name all 7 Bring It On sequels, and now I wish I kind of had, but I'm not going to do that.
I think I said this last episode, and I will probably say it again. I don't typically do things halfway. So I was describing earlier that I like fell into a rabbit hole when it came to this film, and to be more accurate, I jumped into it. I dove into it head first. That's probably how I got the conclusion. Because I was just like, fuck it. I love Michael Gross. I love these films. They're amazing. They're incredible. They don't get enough credit. My partner hates them. It's okay that he's wrong sometimes. So
listen, I would love to just do a trade-off of like watch a Tremors movie, watch a Bring It On. We could. It's the perfect number of them.
We could. Oh my god, that's
and
so
when we're done,
funny.
we could always go to something else that has way too many sequels, like Underworld or Resident Evil.
Sure. I've never really watched those, so I'm telling you.
I mean, I've watched only some of the Resident Evils, but I have watched every single Underworld movie. Every single one is immaculate. Michael Sheen as a slutty werewolf man. Never wearing a shirt.
Slutty werewolf man.
Just the vibes are
that.
everything.
See, I feel like I could definitely... It was sort of a toss-up, this last one, between Tremors and Indiana Jones. Because I was a huge fan of Indiana Jones as a kid, too.
I get that. Harrison Ford, man.
Oh,
I'll take the Bechdel point.
I used to have a huge crush on him and Sean Connery. I'll take the Bechdel point. Because I have a thing for older men. It's fine. There's nothing wrong with me, I think. But anyway, I used to have a huge crush on both of them, and not Raiders, the other one, the Cup.
Oh my gosh. Why?
You don't have a concussion.
Was
you
it
don't
The Last
have
Crusade?
Yes.
Okay.
I was like, you don't
Yes.
have an excuse. I need you to be my brain.
Sorry, that's in the box of things that I forgot about on purpose.
That's so sad because that movie definitely did some things for me.
I get you.
So anyway, there you go. That's my list. That's all I got.
I love it so much. We have so many movies to watch together.
I know. I'm excited.
I love that we had some crossover, but also things that neither of us have ever seen.
Yeah.
So to see new things with each other.
Yes, I'm excited. It is actually very funny to me that Jurassic Park ended up on both of our lists.
Yes. I love that.
That's pretty great. Not planned.
Not planned.
We don't
I didn't
talk
look at your
about
list.
this. Any idea what we're gonna do for our next one?
I don't know.
Okay.
I do have an idea who our Woman of the Week will be next week, though.
I'm excited.
Yeah.
Don't tell me now.
I'm not going to tell you now.
Well, don't.
I'm not going to tell you either.
Don't. I can be very threatening when I want to be. Thanks again for tuning in. If you haven't left the party yet, you probably should. Maybe
you don't have to go home, but you can't stay here.
You can't stay here unless they asked you to stay and they offered to watch 8 movies. Thanks for tuning in, and we will talk to you next week.
Bye.